Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Puja Mishra, and today we are going to explore one of the most fascinating and important topics in business management: cross cultural management, with a focus on understanding cultural dimensions and dilemmas. This session is designed specially for undergraduate students who are just beginning to understand the global nature of today's business environment. We will not only understand the theoretical framework of cultural differences but also look on real world examples to see how culture impacts organizations. Let us begin. Cross cultural management is the practice of managing people and processes that comes from different cultural backgrounds. As globalization expands, companies are increasingly operating in international markets. They are hiring employees from different countries and collaborating with clients, partners, and governments across borders. Now, think about this. What happens when a German engineer who works with an Indian manager or a Chinese client negotiates a deal with Brazilian supplier? Clearly, their ways of thinking, communicating, and decision making may be very different. That's where cross cultural management steps in. It helps us navigate these differences, not by eliminating them, but by embracing and managing them effectively. This field is about understanding cultures deeply and ensuring that business interactions across borders are respectful, efficient, and productive. Let us take a deeper look at what cross-cultural management really involves. It is not just about managing people from different countries. It is about recognizing that each culture has its own norms, values, communication styles, time perceptions, and work ethics. In cross-cultural management, we aim to create strategies that allow people from different cultural backgrounds to work together harmoniously. This includes managing global teams, ensuring smooth collaboration, conducting international negotiations, and building intercultural trust. Failure to understand cultural differences can lead to miscommunication, mistrust, and even business failure. On the other hand, when done right, cross-cultural management can enhance creativity, improve teamwork, and open doors to global management. Let us see one example. One great example for cross-cultural management is Airbnb. When the company expanded globally, it had to understand local hospitality norms. In Japan, for instance, minimalism and cleanliness are highly valued. Airbnb created training materials for hosts in Japan to align with the cultural values, ensuring guests had a culturally appropriate experience. This cultural sensitivity helped Airbnb succeed globally. Now, let us define the term properly. Cross-cultural management refers to the strategic approach of managing people, team, and process that involve cultural diversity. It goes beyond language differences. It includes managing different attitudes toward authority, time, work, relationships, and communication. When people from different cultures come together, they often bring unique perspectives, but also potential misunderstandings. Cross-cultural management focuses on minimizing friction and maximizing understandings. It emphasizes mutual respect and adaptation. This is important not just for HR managers or leaders, but for anyone working in a global organization. Let us see one more example. Consider IKEA operations in India. Initially, IKEA noticed that Indian families often shop together and that local buyers prefer assembled furnitures rather than DIY. Unlike in Europe, where customers enjoy assembling furnitures themselves, Indian customers expected delivery and installation. IKEA adapted their entire business model in India to include delivery and setup services. That's a perfect example of adapting to cultural expectations. Why is cross cultural management becoming more important today? Because businesses are going global with increasing migration, remote work, and international collaboration. Companies now have multicultural teams even within a single office. Cultural diversity brings opportunities. People from different backgrounds offer fresh perspectives, different problem solving methods, and creative solutions. But if not managed properly, it can also lead to challenges like misunderstandings, frictions, or exclusions. Good cross cultural management helps reduce conflicts, increase communication effectiveness, and builds trust. It ensures that all team members feel respected and included, no matter their cultural background. Let us understand this with an example. Take Tesla's expansion into China. The company initially tried to replicate its American style of fast decision making and informal communication. But in China, where business culture emphasizes hierarchy and relationship buildings, this approach didn't work. Tesla now adapted to investigate in local partnerships and modifying its negotiation style. As a result, it quickly gained market leadership in China's EV segment. Isn't it amazing? Cross-cultural management doesn't just apply to HR, it affects almost every function of a global organization. In marketing, cultural differences shape consumer behavior. A color, word, or image that works in one country might be offensive in another. In leadership, different cultures expect different styles. While some cultures value assertiveness, others respect humility and consensus. In policy making and legal compliance, understanding local traditions and norms is essential to operate smoothly. The scope also includes managing international negotiations, supply chains, cross-border mergers, and customer service. Companies that fail to consider cultural dimensions often struggle in foreign markets. One example again. In 2023, Zara ran an ad campaign in South Korea that portrayed a fashion model in a way that unintentionally clashed with local beauty standards. The backlash was swift, and the brand had to pull the campaign and apologize. This shows how important it is to understand cultural preferences before launching any global marketing strategy. Let us now understand what we mean by culture in this context. Culture is a system of shared values, norms, behaviors, and beliefs that guide how people act and interact. Different cultures interpret the world differently. In some cultures, being early is a sign of respect. In others, being flexible with time is normal. In some places, openly questioning a manager is seen as confident and collaborative. In others, it may be considered rude or disrespectful. Understanding these differences is not about judging them. It's about learning how to respect and work with them effectively. For example, Google. For example, Google. Google, for example, adjusted its leadership training programs in the Middle East to respect the local preference for hierarchical leadership. In Western offices, employees were encouraged to openly question leaders. But in the Middle East, Google introduced anonymous feedback system to maintain cultural respect while still gathering inputs from employees. Cultural differences can be seen in communication style, decision making, body language, attitude towards work life balance, and even the meaning of silence. Some cultures are low context, like the US and Germany, where communication is direct and explicit. Others are high context, like Japan or India, where much is communicated through tone, gestures, and shared understanding. Understanding these differences is vital for cross cultural communication. Otherwise, even simple interactions can lead to confusion or offense. For example, in 2022, a US tech firm's executive visited Saudi Arabia to close a partnership deals. They went straight into the business conversations, which is common in the US. However, in Saudi culture, it is important to build relationships first, starting with small talk, sharing coffee, and showing hospitality. The initial meeting failed, but after adjusting their approach and showing cultural sensitivity, they were able to successfully sign the deal. Organizational culture is the personality of a company. It includes the values, beliefs, and practices shared by employees. It shapes how people interact, solve problems, and work towards goals. When companies operate globally or acquire foreign companies, they must align diverse organizational cultures. Failing to do so can lead to internal conflicts and poor performance. A strong organizational culture that respects cultural diversity is more adaptable, productive, and inclusive. For example, when Tata Motors acquired Jaguar Land Rover, they didn't impose Indian management system on the British company. Instead, Tata allowed JLR to retain its autonomy, respecting British work culture and engineering traditions. This cultural sensitivity was key to the success of the acquisition. Hofstede's cultural dimensions theories. Hofstede developed a framework to understand cultural differences based on 6 key dimensions. This model is used by companies worldwide to design culturally appropriate business strategies. Let us look at them briefly. First one is power distance. How much inequality in power is accepted? High in countries like Malaysia, low in countries like Sweden. Second one is individualism versus collectivism. Do people prioritize personal goals or group goals? The US is highly individualistic, whereas Japan is more collectivist. Third one is masculinity versus femininity. Is the culture driven by competition or cooperation? Japan is masculine, the Netherlands is feminine. Uncertainty avoidance. How comfortable are people with ambiguity? Greece is high here and Singapore can be considered as low. Fifth one is long-term versus short-term orientation. Are people focused on future goals or immediate results? China is long-term whereas US is short-term. Sixth is indulgence versus restraint. Are people allowed to enjoy life freely? The US is indulgent, Russia is more restrained. For example, Netflix uses Hofstede's framework to tailor content and marketing. In Brazil, a collectivist and indulgent culture, Netflix promotes content focusing on relationships and family. In the US, an individualistic, masculine culture, They emphasize thrillers and competitive reality shows. So now let us conclude. To conclude, cross-cultural management is essential in today's interconnected business environment. Understanding cultural dimensions helps us avoid conflict, foster respect, and collaborate effectively. Rather than seeing cultural differences as obstacles, we should view them as opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow. Business that invest in cultural awareness and training are more likely to succeed in global market. Let us see one more example. In 2024, the World Bank launched a new diversity and inclusion initiative across its global offices. It included cross-cultural leadership training and cultural adaptive communication platform. This initiative has already improved employee engagement and trust across the continents. Now let me ask you all something. Have you ever worked on a group project with classmates from different states or languages background? Maybe someone preferred to finish everything quickly while another waited for last minute inspiration. Or maybe someone avoided eye contact. These are small but powerful indicators of cultural differences, even within the same country. In business, these differences becomes even more complex across national boundaries. Let's now walk through a short hypothetical case scenario. Imagine a team from 3 countries: Germany, India, and Brazil. They are working remotely on launching a product. The German team wants detailed documentation before starting. The Brazilian team prefers brainstorming and flexible deadlines. The Indian team wants to wait for leadership instructions before taking initiative. Now the project is stuck. No one knows who is leading. Timelines are vague and conflicts are rising. Here's how a culturally intelligent managers would handle it. Assign roles clearly and confirm understanding in each team's preferred communication style. Rotate leadership for inclusiveness. Translate documents into formats suited to each culture. Celebrate small wins to build team spirit. Now, let's take a deep dive into one of the most influential frameworks in cross-cultural studies, Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory. This model is a powerful tool used globally to understand how the values in different countries influence workplace behavior, leadership, communication, and decision making. Hofstede identified 6 cultural dimensions, each representing a fundamental issue that societies face and solve differently. Let us look at each one of it, simple explanations and real life examples so you can relate easily. So the first one is power distance index. This dimension measures how much inequality is accepted in a society, especially in organizations. High power distance cultures accept a hierarchical order. Subordinates don't question any authority. Low power distance cultures prefer quality. Employees expect to be consulted and involved in decision making. For example, in India or Malaysia, employees often wait for clear instructions from their bosses and rarely challenge any authority. Managers are seen as decision makers. But in Sweden or Denmark, employees, even juniors, speak openly in meetings, challenge decisions, and expect leaders to be approachable. Now imagine a Swedish intern in an Indian company who casually suggests a change to a senior manager's plan. That might be perceived as disrespectful unless handled carefully, isn't it? Now second one, individualism versus collectivism. This dimension looks at whether people prioritize personal goals or group loyalty. Individualistic culture values independence, self expression, and personal achievements. Collectivist culture values group harmony, loyalty, and teamwork over individual success. Let us see an example. In the United States, employees are often promoted based on individual performance, and personal branding is important. In contrast, in Japan or South Korea, teams are recognized collectively and decisions are made through consensus. Employees may avoid direct conflict to maintain group harmony. Now, if a US manager praises one employee publicly in a collectivist team, it may create discomfort or tension among others. Number 3, masculinity versus femininity. This isn't about gender, it refers to what value dominates a culture. Masculine cultures focus on achievements, assertiveness, competition, and material success. Feminine cultures emphasize care, quality of life, and collaboration. For example, Japan scores high on masculinity. Workplaces are competitive, performance is rewarded, and long working hours are common. Sweden and Norway, on the other hand, are feminine cultures. They emphasize work life balance, equality, and well being over winning or outperforming. Now imagine if a Japanese company acquires a Swedish one, they may need to adjust expectations around work hours, rewards, and even communication style to reduce conflicts. Now the fourth one, uncertainty avoidance index. This refers to how comfortable a culture is with ambiguity, change, and the unknown. High uncertainty avoidance culture likes structure, rules, and predictability. Low uncertainty avoidance cultures are more flexible, tolerant of change, and willing to take risks. Example: Greece, Portugal, and Japan are high on uncertainty avoidance. These countries often prefer detailed contracts, formal procedures, and clear instructions. Singapore and India, however, are more relaxed about ambiguity. They can adapt quickly to challenges and changing circumstances and are more comfortable with informal rules. So in international projects, this difference may impact how fast team can start a project, how much detail they want in documentation, and how they handle crisis situation. Now fifth one, long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. This dimension deals with society's time horizon. Long-term orientation values persistent thrift and long-term rewards. Short-term orientation focuses on quick results, tradition, and maintaining social obligations. For example, China is a highly long-term oriented business. They are willing to invest years in building relationships and expect delayed returns. The United States is more short-term oriented. Companies focus on quarterly results and may prioritize quick wins. When a US company partners with a Chinese firm, they must understand that building trust takes time, and pushing for fast results may harm the relationships. Now, the sixth one, indulgence versus restraint. This dimension examines how freely societies allow people to enjoy life and fulfill their desires. Indulgent cultures emphasize having fun, spending money, and expressing emotions. Restrained cultures value discipline, control, and suppression of gratification. Example: Mexico, Brazil, and the United States are indulgent societies. Collaborations, celebrations, holidays, and public expressions of joy are common. Russia, Pakistan, and China are more restrained. They value self-control, modesty, and tend to frown upon overt pleasure-seeking behavior. Marketing campaigns that use humor, extravagance, or bold imagery may work in indulgent cultures but appear inappropriate or offensive in the restrained ones. Summary reflections for students. These 6 dimensions can help you anticipate and understand behavior in cross cultural settings. They aren't fixed rules but rather indicators of general trends. As a student, ask yourself, how would you adjust your leadership style in a collectivist versus individualist team? How should a high power distance leader behave in a low power distance culture? So, understanding Hofstede's theory isn't just useful for international travel, it's essential for working in today's globally connected business world. As a future professional, how can you develop cultural intelligence or CQ? Here are a few practical steps. Be curious, read about other cultures, watch global news, and consume content from diverse creators. Listen actively. In meetings or discussions, notice not just what is said but how it is said. Suspend judgment. Instead of labeling behaviors as weird or wrong, ask what cultural values could this reflect? Adapt your style. Modify your communication or leadership based on the audience. Flexibility is a strength. Build relationships. Cultural understanding deepens through human connections, not just theory. Remember, cultural intelligence is not about memorizing customs, it's about building empathy and adaptability. It's a career skill that will set you apart in any global organization. Thank you so much for joining me in this session on cultural dimensions and dilemma. I hope this gave you a clear, deep, and practical understanding of how culture affects global management. Please feel free to drop your questions in the comment and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more academic content. Until next time, stay curious and globally aware. Thank you.